Hi, my name is Tikeledi Moloto, student number 257888222. So this is my story of change with regards to organizational behavior. So this is my personal story with regards to the change or the change that happened in my life, or that I had to make unexpectedly. So a few years ago, during one of my annual health checkups, it was picked up that I was at a high risk of being a type 2 diabetes. And this came at the time when I was planning to have my second child. That means I was still very young. And, you were excited about starting a family and all of that. The first child was quite exciting and was trauma free. Didn't have any of the health scares. So this shook me. It scared me, as I was very much aware of the risks that come with pregnancies that are accompanied by illnesses like diabetes or diabetic. Unfortunately, I was not even aware that in my family it is a sickness, that many of my family members were actually diabetic, and simply because this is not something that is discussed openly in many of our African families, or in many families, and it's not so easy to actually for people to actually open up about their health problems or their health challenges. But I discussed this with my mom, and she told me and revealed to me that majority of my paternal family was actually diabetes, and that it is not actually a surprise for her that I am at high risk. And she was actually glad that I was checking myself, doing annual checkups and all of that. And because we were trying for a second baby, she really encouraged me to act up quite urgently and be very careful around it, and speak to the right health professionals to assist me. So, and also include my family, because that thing required us to be to change our lifestyle, how we eat, our restaurant choices, the food we eat at events, the food we eat in our household, everywhere, the lunch boxes we packed, and all of that. So that required a drastic change, because we were carefree. Just you eat freely, you don't worry about this and that. And then that actually, that diagnosis actually required me to make that change. I obviously consulted a dietitian first to assist with a meal plan for myself, for my kids, or the one child I had at the time, and my husband, on how to go about this. But before I even spoke to a dietitian, obviously had that discussion after having it with my mom, with my husband, and then explained to him what was the results of my annual checkup, and what that meant for us, the journey that we had to take, in having, trying for our second child. And what came out of that discussion was that, it meant that the plan that we had to try for our second child in that particular year or the coming years had to change. So that meant that the plans that we had for our family had to come to a standstill, and now focus on getting me back into the right health state for me to be able to carry a child without posing a diabetic risk to the child, and having as much as complication-free pregnancy for myself. So obviously I had the support of my husband, and in the journey we explained to our child, who was quite young at the time, using the language that she would understand without scaring him. So obviously we spoke to a dietitian, and who assisted us with a meal plan that would suit both me and my husband and my child. Obviously we were encouraged not to make drastic changes that would overwhelm us, but to make gradual changes into how we prepare our food, what we eat when we go out, try to reduce the frequency of actually eating out, but do not stop it, abruptly. But, gradually change how often we eat out. Make a list before we go out to buy and all of that. So I also had to include physical activity, to help reduce the weight. Eating alone was not going to be enough, but I had to include, physical activity like walking and running if I could. But I started with with walking. And then gradually started adding gym activities, that could, help with, lift my energy levels. You'd like do small or easy activities like aerobics, not too intense. And then you also do aqua aerobics, not very intense. So you have a class or two in between. The changes were, of course, challenging at first, but because you have support around you, around the family, it gradually became easy for me because they were the police. They were actually policing me, but those were the police that I appointed to work with me the journey. The changes were challenging but rewarding eventually. I was able to have my second child without diabetes-related risks, and I continue to work with my diabetes specialists and the dietitian to assist me, monitor my health even after I have delivered my child. And mainly because diabetes is a heredity in my family, so I have to be on close watch of it. So instead of having my blood test done once a year, I do it twice a year. And we every now and then we've change our family meal plan to suit us, and also to remove to make it exciting, not to be too boring for us and for the kids. And along the journey we have instilled healthy eating habits in our children, and we continue to do that so that they do not find themselves in the position that I found myself. Thank you.